Hello guys, it's Chummathan here doing another Bakugan BakuTech Retrospect episode. This is episode 3 and is focusing on Kilan Leoness. Kilan Leoness was BTC-08, however it was later re-released in a box as BTC-17, featuring an updated cross-part connection point. Interestingly, these also vary more than normal. BTC-08 actually came with both a metal and a plastic cross-part, while BTC-17 only had the metal one. Kilan Leoness is of course Chaos, and its G power will be either 510, 520, or 560 Gs. It was also released a bit after the initial two, being released in November of 2010. Taking a look at the ball form, you can see it is in white plastic. You have some gold and black markings, plus quite a bit of light blue, bit of yellow as well. Got some metal as well on this thing. Definitely a relatively colorful Bakugan, especially for being so early in BakuTech. Opening it up, it opens up like this, and you might immediately notice a bit of an oddity. So this leg here actually opened up like this. This is actually a feature of Kilan Leoness where it has different stances. Though I will say these don't really do a whole lot. I think their impact defensively is pretty negligible, and it might make it a bit worse if anything because it has a bit less occupancy. It doesn't really move the needle a whole lot either way for Kilan Leoness, but it is worth noting and was an interesting feature, or maybe it was just a byproduct of its design that they call a feature. Regardless, it is something it has, and they kind of vary. Sometimes you'll get a random leg that does this, sometimes multiple, or other times it will just open up normally and you have something more like this. Taking a look at the physical design of Kilan Leoness, it does look pretty nice overall. And it does have some interesting features. So first up, you do have the crossbar here, which is on the tail. Just the one. Of course, this is the metal one. And underneath, there's also this metal strip here, which is pretty important for a couple reasons. So first up, one big thing about that metal strip is that it helps you to roll straight. When the Bakugan is closed, the cross part is basically on the top half with that on the bottom half, so yes, it does roll quite straight because of that. But also, the overall weight of the Bakugan is very low. Combining that metal strip on the bottom of the Bakugan with the cross part that comes out in the back on the tail here, which touches the card, you do get quite a bit of defense out of that. So there was definitely quite a bit put into the design of this Bakugan. Now, closing Kilan Leoness is a bit awkward, but generally the best way to do it is to start with the tail, then you take these back legs in, then these side parts will fold down, and that holds everything in place. Then you kind of put this main back and the head down, and then these front legs are the awkward part because you kind of have to, I don't want to say force them in, but it might make a bit of a sound, bit of a click there, which I generally don't like, but unfortunately that is the easiest way to close it, otherwise it gets a little bit awkward and technical. Before moving on, it is worth noting that Kilan Leoness does kind of have a manual part, but I don't really use it. Basically you have this sort of jaw here, and you can open it, and it can go pretty far. I more so just view this as a playability feature, and personally I do opt to just leave it closed. Looking at the anime and manga, Kilan Leoness is owned by Ko, one of the main characters, as well as one of the Griff brothers. Unlike Flare Dragon and Destroy Minicus, Kilan Leoness was not replaced immediately. It actually was Ko's main Bakugan for around half of the first season, so it actually does get a decent bit of spotlight. And now moving on to the variants. Starting with the gold version, this was released in BTC-20, the Perfect Stand Set, and was also re-released in BCV-20 Blue Blaze and BCV-20 Grey Dragon. The first two being 560 Gs, with BCV-22 being at 600 Gs. The clear version was released in BTC-33 Saint Dragon Ultra Hybrid Set, and was re-released in BCV-21 White Radiance and BCV-22 Grey Dragon. The set version has 560 Gs, White Radiance has either 560 or 580 Gs, and Grey Dragon is just 580 Gs. The Violet version was released in BCV23, Shield of Super Bridge with 700 Gs. The BakuMetallic Silver version was a Korokoro Lottery exclusive at 560 Gs. The clear yellow version was a Korokoro Lottery version and has an unknown G-power as it is extremely hard to come across. And similarly, we have the clear blue version, another Korokoro Lottery prize, with an unknown G-power as it is just extremely rare. Competitively, Kilan Leoness is very interesting. When it was released, it was a great defensive Bakugan and was pretty much uncontested for quite a long time. It had a solid shape with pretty decent occupancy, and having a metal crossbar touching the card as well as the metal strip on the bottom of the Bakugan made this thing pretty tanky. It didn't really see any sort of contention until Acro-Gizzard released over a year later, but that was more occupancy focused, and at the same time as Acro-Gizzard we also got Well Gallo, meaning that instead of using this metal crosspiece, you could instead swap it for a rubber crosspiece, which would sacrifice a bit of weight, but it gave you more friction, which could increase defense. It lasted for quite a while, but over time, like most older Bakugan, it kinda got power crept. Eventually we got Shield Leoness, which had 3 cross parts, and it definitely just had a higher potential for defense than Kilan Leoness did. At the same time, we also got Daifuja, which was just another good occupancy Bakugan, and that said, it was still a pretty good defensive Bakugan throughout BakuTech, but then we get to BakuTech Gachi, and that's where things really just get rough. Occupancy Bakugan took over. You have Nagadaja, Yadansha 4, Ozpress, these are all just better. Ogre Leoness is also better than Kilan. While you could argue its defense isn't, it does have more occupancy and also has more utility, being a good attacker, and there's other things like Bury Beyond, for example, which can just block off cards. And as far as a pure defense Bakugan, like this is, you had Jaibafudo, which was just uncontested in pure defense. So by the end of BakuTech, I would probably put it around low, close to mid B tier. It's still a solid Bakugan, just definitely not what it once was. But anyway, that's Kilan Leoness. It's a pretty interesting Bakugan, and definitely feels like it has a bit more put into it than the original 2 did. But it's still nothing overly complex, and it's just a solid defensive Bakugan, and that's really all to say about it. Anyways, next time will be Van Falco, but until then, thanks for watching, and bye-bye.